Okay, so you can see I got a lot of details done, just ignore that side. But lots of details on the left side. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start figuring out my values since I have all the details, basic shapes down. Now I can start shading. Before I start laying down value though, I'm going to erase all of my guidelines. So right now, go ahead and if you know that you do not need any guidelines anymore, start erasing them. So like, for example, the line that I drew for the tops of my windows, I don't need it anymore in between each window. So just go through and carefully erase those guidelines, and since you should have been drawing very light, it should come off pretty easily. I'm going to do that really quick. Okay, so I erased most of my guidelines on this left side. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to determine the darkest areas. So in my picture, I'd say this back door is the darkest area. Next being the frame of these windows up here. Then up next would be the lockers. So I'm going to start with the darkest value first and just start neatly laying in value. So again, with value, you're not going to start off super heavy. I'm just going to do a nice even layer using good craftsmanship, getting that value down. And slowly I'll just build that up little by little. Next I can move on to like the frames of my windows, which I already kind of did because I didn't want to get too mixed up with all the lines up here. So I just kind of quickly colored them in, but I'm going to go through and kind of fix some of my craftsmanship issues that I have. Being able to see like white spaces in between the streaks, and then the lockers as well. So what I wanted to look at, what I want you to be thinking about is like the relationship between values. I see that my lights are the brightest. One, because they are giving off light in this picture, so they are the lightest part. And then next would probably be like the wall. But even though the wall is super bright, it's still not even as bright as this light. So you can't make these the same value. Even though this seems light, you need to still add a little layer of shading. Same with, let's see, like the paper on here, still a little bit darker than how bright these lights are. So make sure you're paying attention to the relationship. Even though something's bright doesn't mean it's the brightest. This, like different planes, so looking at this, I have this pillar that juts out. To show the difference in the plane is I'm going to make this side a little bit darker because like the shapes and space worksheet, the light source is right here and it's not able to maybe hit this little pillar as much as it hits this side of the pillar. So this face, this plane, is probably getting more light than this side. So, you know, that's going to be a little bit darker, slightly darker than this side of the face. Another just kind of detail thing with value, excuse me, on the floor, what I've seen in the past is people do the reflections of the light on the floor. So you add a layer of shading, and then if you take your eraser, so add your shading and take your eraser and kind of erase away some of those areas that are lighter, that are reflecting the ceiling lights, that looks really, really nice, and it gives it, just pushes it a little bit more, the value, and making this look realistic. So what you can do now is start by choosing which areas are the darkest, and also don't forget that you will want to add in your surreal item. So by this point, you probably should know what your surreal thing is going to be and where. So it's going to be a lot of work if you shade everything and then decide, and you have to erase something away. So even though you're doing a lot of erasing, I would have it in your mind exactly where you're going to put it. whether it's coming out of the floor, coming through the doors, coming out of a light. You should know by now, and if not, decide that right now before you start laying down all of your value.